the microphone goes on in the charging point.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I don't know, actually.
Oh no, you've got 2 hours battery on it.
Oh.
Yeah, loads of time.
That's plenty then.
We're live anyway. We're live anyway, Des. So we should.
Well, we're late as normal, but being in the southwest, Jake, that happens quite a lot, I'm afraid.
Yeah, no, it's
nothing to do. If I had to set all this computer stuff up, it would probably be about 3 o'clock by the time we got going.
Yeah.
And then it'd probably be a mess.
Yeah.
So I'll let a few of you get on. I just put it on my Facebook page actually to see, just saying that we're going live.
Good stuff.
So
what have you been up to, Des? Where have you been going fishing? What have you been up to?
I've been travelling all over. Yeah, I've been obviously you've got the Maver started, the Golden Reel started, and you've got the Fish Show started, which I'm trying to sort of qualify for.
Yeah.
I've had some really nice days fishing, to be honest. Missed the rain a couple of times, which has been an absolute result, because as we all know, it just will not. It's actually pouring down rain again now, and it's just what is going on with the place. But yeah, I've been to Tunnel Barn. I've been there a couple of times, had some lovely days fishing. A little bit of meat fishing, a bit of maggot fishing. Just before it started warming up, really. It's warmed up a little bit, but not enough, I think, to probably catch on hard pellets. It's very close to changing over, I think.
Yeah.
So I've been there. I had a 90 odd pound on one of the first qualifier that I fished there. I drew peg 21 on canal, which isn't great, and the wind was hacking down the other end. And Bradley Gibbons won that on the end peg, the wind blowing down, but fair play to him. That's what you got to do. So we caught £150, won the match. And then I went there 2 weeks ago, and I drew peg 9 on canal, and the wind was going the other direction, which is the normal direction, if you like, down towards the low numbers. There was only a little breeze. I've had 151 pound, mostly shallow on maggots. Caught a crossover over. I could get in, I think it was like 22 inches I could get in over. My caught on maggots over groundbait. Just used match method and Super Crush Green. Just basically medium cad potting that in. Started off with just ground bait, and then as the day went on, I had to introduce maggots. I tried loose feeding across, caught a few shallow, but it was really hard work.
Yeah. And
I caught out of my hand with maggots. So I've ended up 6th in the match with that, which was a good result from there. No chance of winning. There was a £272 on Jenny's Lake, so I'm not being funny. £272 from any peg on. There's not many pegs that can probably do that, to be honest. I think he just caught short down there. I think there was another £200 next door to him. So then big fish on Jenny's are fed, and I think I ended up with 180 F1s for £150.
Yeah, so completely different stamp of fish, isn't it? You're not.
Yeah, if I'd have had 180 fish off of Jenny's, I'd have probably had £450.
Yeah, definitely.
So, but fantastic fishing. Yeah, so really enjoyed that. Then I went to Baldings. I've been to Baldings on a fish show. Drew a nice peg on a point. It was a bit of a weird one. It's like an L-shaped lake on Chestnut. And I was actually fishing that way. And I can't remember, I think it's Rich was the guy who actually won it. He was fishing like that. So when we crossed over, our poles would be like that. He's fishing like that way and I'm fishing that way. Yeah. And we were only like 8 meters away from each other, if that, 7 meters away, but he's fishing like a different area of the lake. And again, I've had a great day's fishing. I've ended up with £123. I had £40 of silvers, skimmers mostly, and then some F1s and a couple of carp. I just couldn't catch constantly. Andy Bennett was opposite me as well, just over to my left, and he had the same sort of match as me, where you could fish shallow, but it never felt like you couldn't get enough of them in your peg. And then I actually looked what's Rich's rig, because I could actually look round to my right. I wish I'd swung round to my right and actually fished on the point. I mean, it sounds easy, but I'd have been fishing on that angle. It'd been more difficult to fish. In hindsight, I wish I'd turned my box round to the right and fished to the right.
Yeah.
But yeah, great day's fishing. Maggots mostly again. And I caught a few fish short on maggots. I just went maggot in. I started on pellets. Pellets weren't quite right again. Just not right yet. I mean, then where else have I been? I went to Cob House Sunday.
Yeah. Fish the Open
on
there.
Wyatt's Lake, which is one of the practice matches for the ultimate fishing competition, which is the capital catch final, which Zoe's luckily got a ticket. Well, I say luckily she's got a ticket for, but it's obviously causing me a lot of grief with rigs and all that sort of stuff. But no, fair play to her. She's had 60 pay. It was horrendous conditions. It blew an absolute hoolie. A 4B16 float was like literally on an angle like that. It was bombing through. Very difficult. Very difficult to fish.
Yeah, when we spoke about it, you said the lake was towing a lot, and that's very unusual, isn't it? It's not a massive lake, is it?
Man, I literally took the rigs off that I set up. So I put my rig in at the start, coming up, put a 4B14 on in like 5 foot of water. I let it go, and it was like I could see all the bits going past on the inside because there's loads of bits being flown off by the wind in the trees. And I thought, what's going on there? Because the wind's blowing that way, and all these bits were going that way. So that was a result anyway. At least the tow was going the opposite way to the wind. I dropped my rig in. It was like, oh dear. But I've ended up, I took some chunky fish because as we're going along, this is how my brain works. I come in the shop. I never had any at home. So I've got a bag of chunky fish, and I mix that with a bit of Super Crushed Green, obviously, because that's like my mix. That is starting to it will start to fade away. It'll probably go to match method mix, chunky fish and ground baits like that now. That's how I sort of work as we go along.
Yeah.
And I was forced, I really struggled at the start. I started on pellets, caught nothing. And it was fishing hard. It was fishing very difficult, probably because of the conditions, to be fair to it. The water is like so high, so coloured. We've had so much rubbishy weather. But in the end, I've ended up catching 91 pounds, 62 pounds of that was bream. Great big things, massive bream, probably 6. I would say some of them are probably over 6 pounds. Let's turn that thing off. Oh, it's Adam Rumble, look. See, that's typical, isn't it? Yeah. Can't get in touch with him, and then he phones when I'm on the live feed.
He should know we're on.
Yeah, he's probably doing that on purpose, to be fair. So yeah, it was. I had a nice day. Joey had 60 pounds, so she's done well for her first match there.
Yeah.
So we're just going to try and put as much effort in as we can in the next, because it's 3 weeks time the final. Whether I learned something that day, I'm not too sure because of the conditions.
Yeah, definitely with them bream, because you sort of think of thingy, don't you, the venue as being like an out and out carp venue, and obviously in years gone by it used to be capable of silly weights. It's a more sensible venue now, isn't it? And Cob House, it's sensible. Like, you would like to think in that final, if somebody can catch 100 or 90, 120, that's going to be there or thereabouts. You would almost definitely think, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I agree. I reckon 120 to 150 will win that match. But I can sense, and speaking to Guy, the owner, it's a moody lake, big fish. They've obviously been in there for a long time. He has put some stockers in there, but they're moody. It's just, you can tell that could fish amazing, and the weather will make such a huge difference. In May, 1st of May, the final is. So if anybody wants to go up and watch it, obviously that's the 1st of May. It's on a Wednesday, which is unusual for a final, but it's what it is. And yeah, I think it's going to be, with the size of fish, I think you could get out of trouble in the last half an hour and claw it back.
Yeah.
You could catch. We went out to practicing the other day and we caught loads of double figure fish up to 15 pounds.
Yeah.
Loads of them.
So a few of them, well, a couple of them, and all of a sudden you could go from nowhere to being right in the race, couldn't you?
Yeah. There's a couple of locals. Stuart, I'm not sure his second name. He won it with 212 pounds.
Right.
And he's caught, but he was on the end. But he's a regular guy there, does fish, fishes it all the time. He's in the final, so he's going to be. There's Jason Powell, who's been going there, I think, relentlessly over the last couple of weeks since they got in the final.
Yeah.
So they're going to be the hot favourites. But I will make sure I will put as much effort in as I need to with Zoe, because I'd love for her to win it and just come off the bank feeling proud of herself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Either that, or she's going to hit me around the back of the head with her handbag and say you were absolutely useless. That information you learned was rubbish. So yeah, we're going to spend a bit of time up there. I mean, it's a beautiful fishery anyway. Cob House. Guy's a fantastic bloke. You know, he's well up for it. He wants to make it as good as he can possibly get. So that's Cob House. And then yesterday I went to Bitterwell Lake, trying to qualify for a Silverfish final. It basically does a final twice a year.
Yeah.
There's a winter one and a sort of summer one. And I got caught in traffic. Got there late. They've already drawn me peg. And I'm thinking, I was watching the trees. The van was getting blown all over the place, going there because of the wind. I thought, just please get me out of the wind. Nope, smack in the headwind. Very, very difficult conditions again. The tow was horrific. It was blowing straight at me. And the actual, because it's so windy and it's keep moving around, the lake's swaying. All of a sudden you see your float, it goes that way, then it goes that way, and then your float comes under your pole tip towards you. They're horrible. But I've ended up catching, and you have to keep, you're in those conditions I find, and it was the same sort of thing at Cob House. There's one thing you couldn't do was just leave your rig in and nail it on the bottom.
Yeah.
You get an odd, but you have to keep flicking it out, different angles, different ways, and all of a sudden it'll go in and go straight under.
Yeah, so they didn't want it looking like unnatural nailed when the whole lake's moving sort of thing. But it was I'm guessing you couldn't catch by like letting it go with the tow or anything like that either.
No, because it'd be going that way and then it'd be going that way.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what? Just if you let it flutter around, nothing would happen really. So I keep flicking it out past, flicking it off to an angle, even with like a 4x16 dotted, just a bulk. I couldn't fish a strung out rig because really at Bitterwell you want strung out rigs really because you do catch a lot of fish just as it settles, but you couldn't do that yesterday.
Yeah.
No roach feeding. Them silvers are definitely now on the verge, I think, of getting ready to spawn. They're all the bream are all barnacled up. At Cob House, even though they're a great big bream, I never got 1 ounce of slime on me. All the slime is like off. They're all barnacles. You can grab out of them and it's like holding a bit of sandpaper. So how long before they spawn, I don't know, but I would have thought everywhere anybody's going at the moment, the silverfish are definitely on, the skimmers especially. The perch, you can't catch any perch at the moment. They're obviously ready to go. So yeah, we're in for a bit of it's funny, isn't it, this time of year? It goes a bit funny. And I think we're going to go through that spell in the next couple of weeks, I think. Yeah. So the final at Cob House could be a tricky one.
Yeah, it's something Zoe's going to have to keep an eye on, isn't it? If they're sort of in the thoughts of can you top your weight up with them bream if they're going to feed.
100%.
Yeah, it's going to have. Yeah. You're going to have to. Yeah, it's going to have to be in their thoughts, isn't it? If they're actually going to feed or if they're going to be moody or what.
Yeah, and Jake, in them finals, it's all well and good going there if you draw in the right area, which if there might be an area on the day where it's going to be very hard to beat that person, you might have to fish to try and come second or third.
Yeah.
Someone might run away with it, and that happens quite a lot in finals, as we well know. So there's the option of thinking, well, actually, we've not drawn great. Let's just try and come second or third and win a section. For her, personally, just coming off with a section win would be amazing.
Yeah,
and I might get some of my expenses back.
Yeah, it'd be a great result if you can build on that. That's the first target, isn't it? I suppose, unless you obviously draw that peg where potentially there's one peg that could catch a load, but you never know, do you?
It's one of them. It could be absolutely flat calm, boiling hot. All the fish are you know what's going to happen. The first thing that's going to happen now is the sun's going to come out. It's going to go flat calm, and there'll be a load of mugging fish to be had. And that is like on the verge, I think, in the next couple of weeks. As long as it does, the sun comes out, that's the first thing them fish are going to do and want to come up in the air, going about, especially the big fish.
Yeah.
And that will obviously affect what the plan is really.
From what I can remember on that lake, though, it's the one where you've got your back to the trees on one bank, and then so from what I can remember on that bank, one bank it's easy to see fish when it's mugging, and the other bank it's really hard because you've got those trees behind you. So one bank you're almost looking into no shadow and you can't really see, and then the other bank you're looking into shadow and you can see stuff like so. I think the bank that I was on and Zoe was on will be the bank where you struggle to see. Yeah. It depends on the angle of the sun. Yeah. I remember going to Hillview, Tewkesbury at Hillview, when I used to go there a lot.
if you were on the bank in the woods, absolute waste. All you'd see is the bow waves and the boils. You wouldn't actually see the fish. On the other side, you'd see everything is clear as day.
Yeah.
And you'd be like mugging them all day, and everybody else, someone on the side, I can't see nothing. It's so annoying.
And it's the people on the opposite bank. They're like, "Oh, there's loads of fish in your peg." You're like, "I've not seen anything. Can't see them."
Yeah. Oh, mate, you just missed that one. Look, there's one just swam past you there, and you can't see it. So, I think if it goes fat calm, hot, still, they will definitely be. They're up, and there were so many fish in. And I think Sunday, it was towing absolutely mad at like the top kit +2, top kit +3, at 11 meters. I was lucky enough I could fish 11 meters. On the other side, they had no chance. It was like a hurricane. It was slower, and I think as you went out into the middle, I would have thought that stopped. And I think there was a lot of fish out in the middle, just sat in like this sort of eddy, if you like, in the middle of the lake. So yeah, but that's me up to now. I can't really think of anything else that I've been doing, but catching lots of fish, very frustrating at times because you know you're doing it half right and you just can't quite get over the hurdle.
Yeah, but that is I'd say one of the benefits there is you're going on those qualifiers, which can be so frustrating, can't they? And if you're enjoying it, you're not far off. In your head, you're probably thinking on the right peg, on the right day, you're gonna do it. At least that's the case, because sometimes you can go on a few of them qualifiers and you can leave just pulling your hair out, feeling like even though you've fished well, you might have won a lake or a section or whatever, but you're miles away overall. At least you're not in that sort of mindset at the minute. Very frustrating. It is like you're so close sometimes.
Tunnel the other week was like you're out of it because of the actual weight you needed to win was like a huge weight. 272 is a big weight, especially at Tunnel in this time of year. But yeah, it's good fishing, nice fishing, fishing little float, strung out, like roach fishing, shallow really, just nice fishing, just hooking maggots, not really banding them, not yet. I've not been bitted out, so I've been just hooking single or double maggot on a 16 SFL, like 3-inch hook lengths, nice, trying to fish with jiggers and stuff, but not really happening for me. It's just not quite right. Monging, not quite right either. It's strange. You just want that tiny little rig, which people probably, it is one of them. It's not like you've got a ball of fish there willing to like drag your elastic out. You've got to fish for them properly. Yeah. Which how is I nice. Think fishing should be anyway. How fishing should be, Jake.
Yeah, it's nice, nice fishing. It's not at a silly point of the year at the minute.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So anyway, if you're just joining us, welcome. Any questions, fire them on, and obviously Jake will get them across. Anything to do with bait, things are going to change now in the next few days, few weeks because of the temperatures going up. And different ground baits and pellets and things like that.
Yeah, let's crack on with a few questions because we have got a few coming in. Like Des says, anything that comes to mind, just fire your questions in and Des will answer. Right, so we'll start first. First one's a Preston related question, but do you know when the Hydrotech hoodies are going to be in stock? Have you had any indication of that?
Is that the new ones?
It's the ones with the waterproof sleeve.
I've just put an order in. I've put an order in for myself. They're not here yet. They will be in the shops. Was that the first product launch? It was, wasn't it? Yeah. So they're supposed to be in the shops in the next couple of weeks, and that's along with the landing nets have just come in. Actually, the new landing nets, the DX ones, they've just come in. They're really nice. So anybody just going off that question a bit, the landing nets are now arrived. The hats, the new hats are in stock. I think they're on their way. Some of the hats. What else? Oh, she's not here. There's a bit of it coming into the shops now, so they'll be very, very soon. But get in fast because they will sell so well. I mean, I've probably put my order in too late. I think they'll all be gone by the time I get mine, to be honest. I thought they're going to be on back order.
Yeah.
So if anybody doesn't know about that, it's a hoodie with the waterproof sleeves, and we all know every time I go fishing, if I catch plenty of fish, I am covered in gunge, They're wet. You chuck them in your van after the match, and they normally sit on your van and rot. But that's going to be a thing of the past with these new hoodies.
Yeah.
Because they got water. Zoe, when's the waterproof sleeve hoodies coming in? No, they're later. They're not. Well, they'll soon, I think. Are they? Well, they might be a bit later than that, then, by the sounds of it. Yeah, the hats are on their way. The hoodie is going to be a bit later.
Zolt's telling you off. XS landing nets, not DX.
XS, sorry, I'm just thinking of DX. I don't know where that DX has come from. Probably something in my
So many abbreviations to keep in your brain.
Yeah, what are they? DX? No, what did he say they're called?
XS.
XS landing net head. Sorry, Zol. Glad to see you're awake anyway, Zol. We should get him on here as well. We should have get Zol
so
on
that he can correct. So that he can correct
so
us.
He can, yeah. So you might be able to answer some of the questions as well. That'd be funny.
Well, in fact, we will get Zolt. I'm going to try and steal Zolt on the 13th of May because 13th of May is the date of the Sonubaits product launch.
Hello.
So I will try and steal Zolt for the day because he can join us on the bank because our live Q&A that day will be filmed on the bank with all the new products and we'll be showing everything off. So hopefully Zolt can join us. That's my little sneaky claim of him.
Don't say no. Just tell him, Jake. Don't ask him. Tell him. That's how you have to work with Zolt. You tell him stuff. Say do it.
Do it.
Doesn't take any notice. But
he will if he knows that he can get a few handfuls.
Anyway,
of free
them hoodies are. As soon as they come to the factory, they'll be flying out to the shops. Hopefully, in a couple of weeks, 3 weeks' time. Hopefully, so fingers crossed.
Good stuff. Andrew Pearson, he's off to Hayfield on Saturday. He's asking, is it too early at the minute to fish a pellet wagler?
Definitely not, Andrew. No, like I said just a second ago, it will change so quickly. There will be so many fish. I mean, that water temperature, I think, is like 10 at the moment. I think as soon as it gets to 12, 14, the fish will just come straight to the top. And pellet wagler, mugging, pole shallow, that will definitely play a part. It always, what I find in May, it ends up coming short, shallow, and in the edges. The actual, on the deck, especially in deep waters, it just doesn't happen. You have to catch shallow, you have to catch short, and you have to catch in the edges to sort of do any good, really. So pellet wagler will be the next 100%. And I always find with a lot of fisheries now, such as Hayfield, they're big carp, they're wise, they've been about a long time. If the pellet wagler is going to work now, it's normally spring, May. Once you've hit them on the pellet wagler, they're very wise to it. And there's a lot of fishing, I think, through the summer. It's more about chucking a wagler to a fish rather than feeding fish. For a lot of people, maybe not if you're in the right area of the lake, but if you're in the wrong area of the lake, it's more about like chucking a wagler out, sort of Andy Powers style, if you like, just mugging them on a wagler. But this time of year now, as soon as they come up, you can have some mega days actually feeding, chucking into the feed, etc., etc. So 100%. A pellet wagler. I'm going down Whiteacres next week, and I think, looking at the weather forecast, there could be a bit of wagler fishing as well. Not on every lake, but on Twin Oaks, lakes like that. Maybe even on Jenny's. If you're on the gaps in the islands, there will be some pellet wagler fishing. So it's got to be in your armoury for certain. The Hayfield's a venue where the pellet wagler works amazingly.
Yeah, it is, and like you say, early season, where before they wise up to it, it can be really good. And if you're first on you can.
If you're first on it, if the wind's right for you, definitely get on it. And don't forget to take some like Robin Reds and things like that, because just a different change hook bait, and even putting like a bandam on a wafter, that can work really, really well as well. But just bear that in mind when you're going.
Good stuff.
All right.
Matt Drinkwater, mate of ours, has said,
Matty,
when do you decide, or how do you decide whether to fish over micros or ground bait? What sort of like the distinction, or what signs do you look out for, which you sort of prefer fishing over?
Well, I mean, I think a standard approach for me on a lot of lakes commercials is you start on pellet. because you can have the easiest days. No different to when I went to Cob House Sunday. I've had some pro expanders, 6mm, 4mm. I've got some micros, and I've got some pellets. And I'm thinking, right, if it goes, that's all I need. So I probably won't be feeding a lot. I'll be tapping them in, throwing a few. Obviously, with the towing situation, I actually started putting balls and micros like that in with a few bigger pellets. I went on it, and it didn't happen. And that's my approach to a lot of fisheries. It's no different to go to Tunnel Barn. It's no different to go to, lake like Hayfield, like Andy was on about. If you can start on that, you nick a few fish early, short on a 6mm expander. And this is when another time now, you only got to see it in the shop. You see the 6mm starting to sell instead of the 4mm and the 2mm. And people, it does change as we go along in the year. But for me, Sunday was a classic example of a great, if Zolt would have actually got off his backside and come and done a video on Sunday instead of taking his missus out for the day, it would have been an amazing video, because it's like you sat there. I think if I'd have fished for carp all day, I think I would have caught a few, but I think in my mind, there's no way I could have framed or won me section. So I took a gamble of obviously I mixed some groundbait up anyway, started feeding groundbait, and all of a sudden it's like, there weren't many bites, but the bites you got were quality fish, and it's transformed me peg. So unless you know the venue that well, and obviously you've got to be allowed to use groundbait. Luckily at Cob House, you're allowed to use 1 kilo of groundbait, which is great, because this has always been my argument for a lot of fisheries, is it's all well and good having a bait limit. I'm not having a go at anybody, but I like the option. If you take that and that, like some pellets and corn, that's great if it works. If it doesn't work, you're sat there thinking, what do I do now? Yeah. And at least if you've got a nice bait limit of where you can say, I've got 4 pints of maggots, or I've got 3 pints of maggots, or I've got, I'm allowed to take 2 pints of maggots and 2 pints of casters. It gives you a nice option. We're not, you're not going to lob it all in. And if the pellets work, you take your casters and maggots back home, put them in the fridge, and use them next time you go out. But if you haven't got that option, it's very difficult to make something happen. That's what I love about fisheries, where you can use groundbait. You can, they got rules on the amount of groundbait, which is fair enough. But I just love it where you can change and make something happen. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. They're the matches that you actually come off, and everybody says, "Christ almighty, I didn't think there was that many bream in that lake." And I'm like, well, that's the first time I've been there. First time I fished that lake in a match. But I'd gone back, I'd have been like, somebody could have caught 80, 90 pound of bream, possibly.
So did you make that's the way I do it at the weekend? Did you see that there were bream and sneak a little bit of groundbait in, even in open water, or do you just micros work, so that's what you kept feeding? It's
really weird that, because what my plan was, obviously fishing pellets, hard stroke soft pellets, and maybe a piece of corn on the hook. And maybe a bunch of maggots over micro. My plan was to feed micros and put various baits on the hook. Yeah. And try and work it out like that. As it happens, it didn't work. Just probably because the fish didn't want to feed, they weren't in the area, whatever. And when I started catching short over groundbait, I actually done it long. It didn't work long. Mad. Yeah. And I don't know why. The fish just wanted to, even those big bream wanted to be on that short line.
Yeah, maybe because of that toe that was closer in and not in the middle of the lake. Whether it was just more oxygenated, or I don't know what it could be.
It was weird. It was just a strange one. But that's fishing. That's why you go fishing. You think, chatting to Zoe on the way home, and she's probably just fallen asleep, like, because I'm rattling on about fishing, and she's like probably thinking, I haven't got a clue what you're on about. But I'm like, why weren't they out long? I had one bite out long, which was a skimmer. And all those great big 6 pound bream were all like where you catch your big weights of carp, like, when the carp turn up. Yeah. But that's what I do. Use the micros, and on a different day, I could go back to the same place, same sort of scenario, put some pellets in, and the carp are having a go, and I wouldn't even use the groundbait. Yeah. I might put the groundbait down the edge. The groundbait for that day really was for down the edge, mixed in with some micros and some dead reds. Yeah. And it ended up being my saviour of catching 60 pound of silvers. Yeah. And without that, it's very difficult, isn't it? But that's how my brain works. Probably a lot of people would be like, I can't believe you've done that, Des. But I'm like, well, why would I want to sit there? I could have just sat there and carried on with my game plan and I'm like, well, this is boring. I've got to try and You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes you get a little bit lucky. I was never going to beat Stewart's weight of 212 £, but I come second, and it's great, isn't it? That's when you become. I think a lot of people say to me, Des, how can I get a sponsorship? How do I go about getting a sponsorship? Especially the young generation now say, how can I do what you've done? And it's things like that helps you get that. You know, where a lot of people say, I can't believe you've caught that. I've never seen anybody do that. And that's what thinking outside the box, you know, trying something, and I think it makes you such a better angler in the end of just, you know, rather than just sitting there, sort of just, for, you know, just like, oh, well, this ain't happening. He's catching on it down there. Why can't I catch it on here? Well, actually, I don't know. There's different reasons. That's when you've got to think, well, actually, I'll try this. Because I honestly thought with the colour of the water, and that's something else I was looking at, because there was lots of rain, the colour of the water was really quite murky. And sometimes, I'll tell you, I've done a thing with Dave Weston years ago, well, my Think Fishing, I was at Barston. It's always little things like that, and it was chocolate brown with loads of rain. The river, it runs around the back of Barston, was literally overflowing into the lake. And we started off on an XR feeder, caught nothing with micros. And I said to Dave, I said, look, I've got to try and, you know, for the film, got to try and I'll put some groundbait in. Put some groundbait in, caught a carp every single chuck. You just think, what's that all about?
Yeah.
And that
did a video with Lee very recently, and it was very much that sort of, like, going back to Matt's question, is if you can if you use micros as like your starting point, and if you're getting loads of bites with micros, too many bites, then you can go bigger particles, 4 mils, even 6 mils. But if you're not getting bites and you're like, well, where do I go now? Ground bait's like I'm not getting indications with micros, so ground bait's like the next one to make something happen, isn't it? Smaller particle.
Yeah, and I think 100%. And the more you think about that in fishing, I think it makes total sense. Yeah. It's like when you go on a canal, you try on cast, you can't catch on cast, you end up being on pinkies. Yeah, it's the same. Yeah, them little baits, they love them, don't they? So yeah, there's lots of scenarios. You know, that's so nice when you go to a venue that allows ground bait, is you can always, if you put ground bait and you don't catch, then you just will pack up, because there ain't a lot else you can do really, especially like, you know, when the fish are feeding on the bottom. Yeah. But without that bit of ground bait, the amount of venues I go to, I think, I wish I had a little bit of ground bait, even like 2 pints.
You do it a lot more than pretty much every angler, innit? You always have it there up your sleeve, don't you?
Yeah, always, because there's so many. I've been caught out in the past. Now I won't bother with any ground bait today. And you're like, you go to a venue that's been fishing its absolute brains out. All you need is this and that, and you're like, oh right. You look down, and everybody's like, what's going on today? And nothing's happening. And I'm like, oh right, okay. And I've even got off in boxing matches, mixed a bit of ground bait up, put some in. It's like a light switch.
Yeah, something to trigger the pack.
Anyway, we've gone off normal Q&A for me. We've just gone off into outer space. But it's interesting. It makes you, I think, having that option of ground bait, it makes you such a better angler.
Yeah.
Matt,
if you want that visually as well, there is a video that just went live on the Sonu channel just last week with Lee, and it's pretty much that topic, to be fair. We went to Lindholme Lakes, and it's all about that sort of micros, 4 mils, ground bait, like when and where, when to change, that sort of thing. So go and watch that if you're interested in it. Next question, I've got one about 1 mil pro feed pellets. So John, 1 mil pro feed, be frank about it. So we got them. Obviously they were brilliant, everybody loved them, they were really, really popular. We went to reorder, so from our supplier, obviously with the pro feed pellets, they come to us, they go through a process at Sonu HQ. We had a bit of oil, we basically make them really consistent so that they sink, so that when you soak them, they're all very, very consistent. They blow up but don't turn to mush. They were absolutely awesome. We went to reorder, and the supplier basically said, by the way, we've increased the price by 4 times more than what basically the original, which was, it's just ridiculous. They were trying their arm a little bit. And and there's not a lot we could do about it. We are trying to source them. We are trying to work with them to basically get so that we can add them back in. But at the minute we can't because the price is just too much, and yeah, not something that we're willing to ask people to pay for them. So
gutted, absolutely gutted. It is one of those baits. Going back to Groundbait again, that's when those little pellets can
it fills that gap in between, another something in between, isn't it?
Yeah. So at the moment, I've got about 600 bags in the gap. I haven't.
Yeah, Tess cleared us out.
I think I've got, believe it or not, I've even got some of the original ones that we used to do many years ago.
Yeah, the fin perfect.
The fin 1 mils. Yeah. If anybody's got any bags, I've got about 3 or 4 bags of them. I don't know why the hell I don't use them. I think I just like looking at them. And I've probably got about 2 or 3 bags of the Pro 1 mils. So, yeah, if anybody's in a shop, get in quick, strip the shelves because they won't be back anytime soon, really, Jake, are they?
No, I wouldn't have. It's a tough one to say, but no, not at the minute, but we are trying, so we will try.
Yeah.
Question, Jeff Ortega, question from me. When do you feel meat is most effective on commercials, as in early spring or autumn? When do you think?
All right, Jeff, meat, depending on where you live in the country, in my area, meat can work all year round. Maybe not like it does in the spring and summer, because you'll be fishing it long on a pond, even on a wagler. If you go to Viaduct, for instance, there's a lot of fish caught there on a wagler. It's that sort of venue. There's nothing better than catching like winter carp and bream on a wagler with meat and corn. But meat now comes in this point onwards. Tunnel Barn, a couple of weeks now, meat's been working really well. Not in every peg, but you can catch on it. Cob House, if Guy let me use Cob meat on Sunday, I'm convinced I would have probably caught more bream. Bream and carp love luncheon meat. Obviously you can use it at Cob House, but you can use it on the hook. I didn't actually know that until after the match, because I would have took a bit of meat with me, even if you want to chuck a bomb out with a bit of punch meat on. So Jeff, meat has to be in your armory now on 100%. That's even on a method as well. Method, straight lead on the pole. I remember qualifying for the Golden Reel last year at Larford, and that, going back to the previous question from Matty, it was amazing. I've gone there. Larford's been fishing really well on the match day. I drew one off, I think it was the end peg, and I drew up from the end peg on the just as you drive in, and I caught a couple of fish. It was really tough. Bear in mind, all the weights leading up to that match were great. Everybody's bagging. Also, I got there, fish like, don't bother today. What did I end up doing? Having a bit of a gamble, put half a pot of micros in, thinking I'll just try it, and ended up winning the match with nearly £200 a carp on meat over micros. That is fishing, isn't it? That's, you go there not to do that, but because everything you're trying, like pinging meat or pinging bigger pellets ain't working, that's the time you can put smaller pellets in. But meat, again, that day was an absolute must. Literally tapping in 5 bits of meat over a little ball or half a pot of loose micros. So yeah, Jeff, get on the meat, mate. Get down your local Tesco's. I think Powers put me onto so I think it's Sainsbury's Power uses. He's very crafty, Powers. He's a bit tight as well. He always looks at the cheap meat. He put me on, I think, I use Tulip. It's either Tulip or Celebrity. I think it's Tulip I buy from Tesco's. That's normally pretty good. Very little fat in it. It's good meat and it all sinks. You know when it's good meat because you don't have to mess about with it. So get on that. And it's I got a pack. I've always got a pack in my van. I just go buy 12 tins, and depending on where you go, I always take it with me and just freeze it. You can freeze it if you don't use it. Freeze it. Don't refreeze it after. Chuck it in the bin. Yeah. So So definitely, Jeff. Definitely get on the meat, Jeff. It's the time onwards. No.
Good stuff. Mr. King has said, Des, why on our canal can we catch first thing in the morning between say 7 and 9 a.m. and then after 5 p.m. But during the middle of the day, they completely switch off.
Yeah, well, that's Mr. King. I think that's a classic. Most fishing situations, really. I'm not sure what the fish do, whether they just come off the bottom, they don't feed. Yeah, it's a tricky one. I'm not sure why they just, it's fishing. That's what's nice about fishing, is you don't really know. And because you always think even some of the biggest matches I fished, like team matches, you have a good start, and then you'll be, especially on bloodworm matches, you'll ball it in, you'll catch some roach straight away, and you might not catch until literally 20 minutes to go, and you'll have a roach or chuck, and you think they've been there. They haven't travelled up the river for an hour to get to you. They're just swimming around off the bottom, not feeding, and then also it's like a time switch. They just start feeding. And I've had various matches that happens.
Is it potential that, like on the canal, if it's a narrow canal that's quite heavily boated, that could potentially be what's, I don't know, pushing the fish out or spooking them, or like looking at obviously time of day? That's always the case. It's like every canal you go to, doesn't it? All of a sudden you start seeing loads of fish topping right across venues,
and they don't feed.
Yeah, and they don't feed. But potentially, I don't know what canal it is, but potentially if there's boat traffic, as soon as I know some venues you go to, as soon as one boat goes through, that's it. Then it very rarely recovers, sort of thing, until they start slowing down again. I've
told this story loads of times. It's on typical Gloucester Canal when I used to go and fish it all the time. I went down there. I was on an early shift, and Brian Gay, who used to do a bit of work for DHP magazine, and he always used to say to me, Des, if you go pleasure fishing, you catch a nice net of fish, give me a bell. So I went down to Pilot on the Gloucester Canal, sat there, and I probably started fishing about 2 o'clock on hemp. I had like there was a nice picture actually in the Angler, I think it's Angler's Mail back then. I caught 40 pound of roach, which is like unheard of on the Gloucester Canal, really. Yeah. And I just caught a roach, a chuck on hemp, little strung out rig. Can't remember what it was, some sort of bread punch float I used to use back then. And I phoned Brian up, he come down, took a shot. It was fantastic fishing. And then that was on the Wednesday, and on the Saturday or the Sunday, I can't remember, we had a big team match called the Area Championships. Big match, 150 people. Guess what peg I drew? The peg that I fished on Wednesday. And Wednesday was the cut-off point. So you could fish Wednesday, and then you couldn't fish Thursday, Friday. And I thought I had the same rig, all made up. I've never touched the rig. I just put it on a winder. How many bites do you reckon I had on the hand?
If I had the Gloucester Canal, I'd say
never had a bite. And that sums up some venues. And I'm sure if I'd have packed up, sat there for an hour and a half, I probably would have caught on hemp later on. And you can't explain that. Them roach are in the area. What they do, I think they just come off the bottom, swim around, happy days, not interested. And that's how do you explain it? I was gutted.
Yeah.
And I ended up catching 7 pound, normal Gloucester Canal, sat out there, maggot over a bit of ground bait, had an odd bite, caught a couple of skimmers, a few eels, maybe one big skimmer, and won the section with 7 pound.
Yeah.
So I don't know about that one. I don't know what happens. The only thing I will say is when it is like that, you can actually fish. I think you can fish off the bottom and just let it flutter around, and you do catch your fish quite well off the bottom sometimes during the midday when they're just off the bottom and not feeding. Very tricky question to answer that.
Yeah, definitely. Liam Parkinson has said, what's your go-to paste mix? Any recommendations welcome?
50-50, which I think I've got some here. That is an awesome paste mix. Some people use that a lot anyway, just feeder fishing and their normal day-to-day fishing. But that for paste is amazing. It's really heavy and it's quite oily. An oily ground bait, I think, makes some of the better. And what's nice about that is it's easy to use. It's one of them if you mix it too wet, just stick a little bit more dry in it and it all comes back as you want it. You can't go wrong with it. and just mix it the same as the pastes, 1-to-1. So I think that's about 1-to-1 on that, Jake, isn't it? It's the same sort of thing, really.
Yeah,
very close.
Yeah, for a paste, if you're mixing it as a paste, 1-to-1's pretty much
yeah.
right.
For me, if I do paste fishing, and I got that, I'll just use 1-to-1 paste or that 50-50, and you can't go wrong, to be honest. It's an absolute no-brainer for me. And I know Jake said to me, Super Crush Green makes a real good paste as well.
Yeah, the only thing with Super Crush Green is it's a little bit fluffy, so it breaks down a bit quick.
Yeah.
But for F1s where you're in and out, it's brilliant because it's very smooth and fine. But one thing I would say, if you like Super Crush Green, then you probably want to add something sticky to it, like one of the Pro pastes, which are ridiculously sticky. To be fair, with those Pro paste, one thing I would say as well is if you've got a ground bait that you like, so it doesn't matter what it is in the range, match method mix, chunky fish, 50-50 green, Super Crush Green, whatever that ground bait is that you like, if you use those Pro pastes with it and mix them 50-50 or just a quarter of Pro paste, it's sticky and it'll turn anything into a paste because it'll basically helps it to bind, and it's also got a lot of fish meal in there.
That's that one, isn't it? That's that one.
Yes.
Is that the Pro paste?
Yeah.
No, that's not the Pro paste, is it? Is that one?
It's a bit delayed on mine, so I can't.
Is that the Pro paste? That's the Pro paste, isn't it? That one.
The one next to your arm, isn't it? You've got 1-to-1
paste.
Oh yeah.
1-to-1 paste.
Oh yeah. It's just a bit delayed.
Which one's the stickier one?
That one, Pro paste, the one you've got there, the green one.
Yeah, that's the one that's sticky, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you've got Pro paste. Which one's is that, Jake? Which one's the sticky one out of them two?
The one on the right, so the one closest to you, yeah.
This one?
Yeah,
that's the sticky one. Yeah. Where that's like got really sticky in it, that one.
Oh, yeah, proper sticky. So Pro paste was basically made, it's very, very fine, very, very sticky. It's got a lot of fish meal in there, whereas 1-to-1 is almost like it's a bit like a ground bait paste, so it breaks down a little bit quicker. Obviously, with 1-to-1 paste, you get your free paste pot, which is always nice. But Pro paste is sort of Andy Finley's brainchild, because he likes a really sticky, really fine paste, and he just adds a little bit into his micro pellets and almost creates a paste out of micros.
Right.
And he also adds it into his method feeder as well.
Probably adds it into his pro expanders as well.
Everything possible. But yeah, so that's something you can do there, Liam. If you've already got a ground bait you love, then you can add some Pro paste, but as Des says, 50-50 green or one of the 1-to-1 pastes also make a great paste as well. Right, Kyle, Des is Super Crush Green just the same as Super Crush Expander Mix? Is it the same?
No, Kyle, it's not. It's not. It's similar in a certain way, but it's definitely not the same, 100%. The pellets, like I said on the last Q&A, the pellets that are actually, the actual raw ingredients for Super Crush Green is made and coloured by some, obviously I don't know who, and then we bring it into the factory and do what they do with it. So it's definitely not the same. It is similar in a certain way, but Super Crush Green to me, I actually started mixing the Super Crush Expander and the Super Crush Green together, because when I was going to tunnel in the winter league, Super Crush Green on its own is quite difficult to actually make it bind together. It's sort of one of them ground baits. If you put Super Crush Expander with it, the Super Crush Expander actually made it bind together. So I wanted it where I could make a little ball like that, get it down to the bottom and then break down. Super Crush Green on its own, it was very difficult to do that. Even with a bread punch, you'd force it in and it just wants to sort of come out. Oh, I've done a bit thingy there, Jake. Let me just close that down a minute. Is that better? Am I still light? Looks like it's gone a bit dark.
No, you're still light.
Is it gone? Oh, that's all right then.
It'll just be your battery might be dying on your laptop.
Yeah, it might be actually. Let me just check. How much battery we got? I don't even know where the battery sign is on here. I found it earlier. But anyway, yeah, going back to that, obviously, yeah, it is dying actually. It is different. It's not quite as bindy as Crust Expander. I might have to just take this thing off, Jake. Hopefully I won't lose you. I'll have to plug it in. Let me just take that off a minute. I'm hoping I'm not going to lose anybody because the battery is pretty. There?
Yeah, can hear you.
Let's have a look. Here we go. I think we're charging.
Yeah.
Hopefully. We're back light now. So yeah, it is different. It's different. It's not Crust Expander, which is green, basically.
Yeah. We don't just get a standard expander and diet green, basically, do we? So
Yeah.
it's a tailored pellet. They are similar. They are both forms of expanders. But the green expander is a koi expander that we get tailor-made for us. And you find that green crushed pellet in a lot of other mixes within our range, but generally mixed with other stuff, whereas Super Crush Green is 100% that green koi expander.
That pellet.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's been in the range for an awful long time, that Groundbait.
About a decade, I reckon.
An awful long time.
A very long time. Let's have a look. Robert Hind has asked, would you pin your nets back for F1 fishing?
Rob, I used to. What I used to use, just get some like bungees. Obviously, the most keep nets have got like a little plastic attachment on it at the bottom, and I just I don't really bother that anymore. I know you go to some venues, and even at Todber, what they were doing was fishing in between their keep nets. I think for me, for fish welfare, I don't think it's great. You know, even if you've got like a 50, 60 pound net limit, I think having your keep nets all like round like that, I think it's a bit sort of, is it not what we're trying to do? You know, fisheries want their fish to be kept in good, you know, a lot of water and etc. etc. No, it's not the sort of thing I do, to be honest. Not now. No. I don't think there's only an odd time that I've actually done that. That was several years ago that I tried it. It didn't really work, and I just chucked my keep nets in now, and that's it.
No, it's rare that you end up getting caught up on them. It's not really like a narrow canal where you've got boats coming past and you don't want them getting caught up in anything. It's never going to happen. It's rare that when you're playing a fish actually does you under a keep net, really, isn't it?
Getting on them, don't you? But I try not to do it. I don't do it, really.
Yeah.
I think I don't think most fisheries would want that either, to be perfectly honest with you.
No.
I used to do it on the Canadian Canal, for like Jake said, because when you've got a boat go past, it would actually wash it all the way down like that. You know what I mean? All over the shop. So I used to just put like a bank stick in, walk down the bank and like put it in so it couldn't move around, which was better for the fish at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Don't really do that.
Ryan Ogden, when starting your match, what things do you do that gives you an edge, and what things you see that us mere mortals do that ruin their match? So
good question, Brian.
That's a really good question.
What do I do? I have a bit of a grizzle. I have a bit of a moan up. That helps a bit. Normally, that clears the old baffles out. What do I do? Oh, well, I would little and often to start with. You know, don't overdo it. I think we know that now. I think most mash anglers now don't go in with like a big pot unless they're going down the edge or something like that. They don't overcook it at the start. And feel your way into the match. Don't panic. Learn to throw. I mean, I think, like for me, Brian, learn to throw bait as well. Such an important part of fishing now. You know, even if you're potting in, learn to throw, because throwing bait can make a lot of difference to what you catch. But don't throw too much. You know, don't get blathering it in, like, because you don't need to some days. You know, I see people throwing in, when I say like throwing in, like, you know, I might be potting, like cab potting in 10 pellets, then throwing 4 or 5 as I hook one. I've seen people throwing, like, they get a handful of pellets. You think, well, that's handy if they can have it, and then suddenly they foul up the next 5.
Yeah.
Because there's like so many pellets going down. The fish are on holiday, aren't they? They love it, but so you foul look, and that's the thing nowadays. You've got to go so careful what you feed because the foul looking of the fish. I don't know what else I do really. What do I do about start of the match? Oh.
I think what you're saying there is pretty much it. Never go gung ho at the start of a match, is it?
Yeah, take your time at the start. You know, we all want to go in and always look around. Always use other people, which I've always said that in my videos. You know, I don't mean like, you know, you're fishing like that and you're like that. You know, oh, I just missed a bite then. Have a glance around. It's when someone's playing someone, you know, playing a fish, and you think, oh, where did he catch that? Because that's the information I'm trying to find out. Is he fishing a top kitten 1? Is he fishing a top kitten 2? Is he gone out long? Is he fishing shallow? You know, that's the information that I need. It might not work where you are, Brian, but that's the information I'm looking for. Sometimes I've been to venues, I've fished a top kitten 3, and I've looked round and I'm fishing out too far. There's a few of them catching on top kitten 1. And I'm like, oh, I'll have a look at that, you know? And it's little things like that you, especially on venues you don't go and you don't know, that's when you've got to be a little bit more open-minded of what other people are doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like at Cob House Sunday, I'm looking at Boldins, all of those venues where I don't go. I'm looking for information that might help me during the match. I might be catching a few what I'm doing, but I'm thinking, all right, yeah, I've just seen him catch. Oh, he's not fishing a foot deep, he's fishing 3 foot deep. So all that is being clogged in there whilst you're trying to concentrate on what you're doing as well. Trying to get as much info as you can. Don't get too wound up about it. Don't get like too what's the word? Like, you know, don't get all like stressed out about it, but just use that info. So if you do need to change, you think, oh yeah, I've seen him catch 3 foot deep. I might have a rig set up for that. You know what I mean? What if you have got a rig set up for it? Try it. That can save you instead of going out there the wrong depth for an hour. You've gone out there at the right depth. Just all those little things that I'm trying to pick up.
Yeah.
Yes. Like when someone's fishing a method feeder and I'm not, I'm like, have a quick glance out when he winds back in empty, but not without a fish. What kind of bandsams he got on? What hook baits he got on? All that is being processed in there. You know, that's how I don't realise I'm doing it, but I'm looking for that crafted. You know, always have a little chat with him. I mean,
yeah. No, I think that's something. Yeah, it goes a long way, and it don't be too sort of proud in what you're doing yourself. If other people are catching more than you, then learn from it. Use
it. Yeah, like if I see someone striking at the start of the match, you know, is he using? Yeah, he's tapping in pellets. I can probably tell that he's tapping in pellets. He's striking and he ain't coming back. Well, that tells me he's fishing hard pellet. If he strikes, he comes back. I know he's fishing expander. So, you know, things like that, or he could be fishing expander, probably is fishing expander. Use that as your, you know, that's what I do. So when I go in on my pellet line, I'll have a go on expander if I think he's fishing. If he's had a good run, if he's getting bitted out, I'll be like, well, actually, I'll go out on our pellet. There's no point going out on expander because it's probably all the little fish are feeding. So it's that thing, you know, that's about it. My brain, Brian, that's about as good as what it gets in my brain, to be honest, I'm afraid. There ain't much else any good in my brain apart from looking at things like that. So yeah, I hope that helps a bit.
Yep, good stuff. Darren has said he's trying a new water tomorrow. Believe it's an old backup to a reservoir around 12 foot deep at 6 sections. Quality roach around the £1 mark. Sounds good. And bream from bream from 3 to 4 pounds. Any advice? Bait, rigs, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Who's that again?
Darren.
Right, Darren. Well, basically, if it's 12 foot, is it 12 foot deep?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to want rigs. Going on rigs wise, you're going to want probably a minimum of 1 gram. Depending on how heavily it gets fished, I would definitely be setting. Obviously, look at the conditions. Obviously, the wind and that are terrible at the moment. So you might even want to rig up to 2 gram if it's towing through bad. But probably 1 gram and a quarter, I would say, be your sort of starting point. 014 Aki power main line, 010 bottoms. Obviously, if you're allowed to use barbed hooks, N10 would be my favourite hook for that. What I would do on there, Darren, is feed your ground bait. You're going to want to put some ground bait in because there's obviously bream in there, like you said. I would put in 4 balls of ground bait with some casters, some dead maggots, even possibly a few pinkies, because you never know with those big waters. Sometimes they can be really, really funny. You know, you can fish like double pinky and still catch the quality fish. But worms could be mega. Give yourself a chance. So if you were fishing at 13 meters, for example, I would come back, have that much pole behind me, probably about 18 inches to 2 foot of pole, put your ground bait in there, so you've got the option of going past your ground bait. You know, it might even be worth, what I would probably do in that situation, put my ground bait in at 12 and a half, and past, put half a pot of casters in. And then it gives you that option of going past. If the fish don't, you know, especially the roach, they don't want to come over ground bait, 'cause they don't sometimes. You can go past and you can fish casters, double maggot on the hook. Going back to the ground bait side of it, I'd probably put like 3 or 4 balls in, like quite like firm, and then put 3 or 4 pots of loose in over the top.
What sort of mix,
even at 12?
What sort of mix would you be looking
mixed, at? Obviously, if it's on the back of a commercial, you'd like to think it gets fished. Personally, for me, in that depth of water, I would put Pro Fatchers. I would put either Pro Fatchers, use Pro Fatchers as your base mix, because it's quite a heavy ground bait when it's mixed up, and then either mix F1 in it or Super Crush Green. And then you can always put a little bit of sweet skimmer in it, or some natural. It depends. I don't know, Darren, but if it's a natural water that doesn't get fished much, put some deep water in it, right, which is a natural ground bait, in with your Pro Fatchers and maybe some, like I said, Super Crush Green. If it gets fished a lot with the method feeder, they're seeing pellets, and I would go down more of the fish, you know, the
Fatchers and Super Crush Green.
Yes, Fatchers, Super Crush Green, and then possibly a little bit of sweet skimmer. You know, don't mess about, honestly. I would put, like I said, 3 to 4 balls in with all your bait in it, so casters, dead maggots, a little bit of chopworm, and then put 4 pots in loose. Literally put it in the pot, pat it down, get it out there. You know, I said, come back a little bit from your pole, your end of your pole, and then what you do, when they put that loose in, you'll see it come out and it sort of bobs a bit, and then it just goes down, and that will litter the bottom with particles everywhere. And if them bream come over it, I'm not saying it's guaranteed, because you never know with bream, especially this time of year, they will be a bit funny with the spawning and that in their mind. I think if they come over it, mate, you'll have it. Don't mess about. I would put a bit of bait in. I would be putting sort of 3 to 4 balls in and 4 pots of loose, and loose feed casters straight away.
Yeah, sounds
That's
great.
what I'd be doing.
Sounds like
worms,
nice
you've got to work
fishing.
it out on the day. Worms could be brilliant, but have that option where you go past your ground bait and put half a pot of casters in. You know, it's quite positive, but on those sort of lakes, you can be positive. You might not catch. You'll probably be on a feeder for a little bit, you know, or start short, depending on what sort of venue or what peg you've drawn. Start on a feeder, like however big of chuck you want to go, maybe 30, 40, 50 yards, it's up to you. Leave that pole line, leave it for like 45 minutes to an hour, but loose feed casters over it. And that would be my approach to that venue for certain. You know, have a gram and then when you do go out on your, have a look on the bottom to start with. But what you'll find sometimes is come off the bottom. On those big waters, you can fish 6 inches off the bottom for a little bit. You might catch some roach, some perch, and bits and pieces. And then all of a sudden they go down and they all start feeding on the bottom. So if you go on the bottom, you don't get a bite, just try 6 inches off for a little bit, because you never know. It's like going back to that question we got from King about the canal. Lots of times when I used to go on the canals and rivers, you put an amount of ground bait in, you always start off the bottom. You always get a run of fish off the bottom. But if you start on the bottom, it just ain't quite right. It's like they've all come over it and they're all bombing around off the bottom. They all know it's there, and then all of a sudden, wallop, they go down the bottom. You can catch them on the bottom all day then.
Yeah.
All right. Hope that helps, Darren. If it doesn't work, don't contact me.
So
that's what I'd be.
Mr. King is obviously about the narrow canal before catching early and late. There's no canals go on the St Helens Canal, so my theory's out the window.
Exactly, gone. No boats.
No boats.
But going back to his question, just if you do catch, go out of your peg a bit, put a couple of sections on, and start a new line in the same depth of water, a couple of sections down.
Might need following.
And just put a tiny little bit of bait in.
Fair enough. Bitterwell Lake.
Oh yeah.
It puts Paul Isaacs. I'm guessing it's him who controls their YouTube channel. Has said, great advice, guys, as always. Glad you enjoyed the wind yesterday, Des. Shame the pegging wasn't as good as the banter. So
the pegging was horrific.
At least
it was all right. I was quite happy where I drew. I just didn't want the gale force wind at me because my makeup, my mascara comes off. Look, if I don't, you know what I mean. It blows it off my eyes.
Ryan,
great venue. Going back to that, it's great. Anybody in the southwest area that wants to do some silverfish fishing on a Tuesday, the matches are very, very popular. It's fishing brilliantly.
Yeah, lovely.
Skimmers, roach. It's that's a venue I used to fish when I was a kid, and I love every minute. And Paul's done an amazing. And if anybody wants to get into fishing, like kids in the southwest, contact that fishery, Paul Isaacs at Bitterwell Lake, and he puts a massive amount of effort. All the guys, even where I live, if anybody's got any second-hand kit, they want to get rid of it, Paul uses that. He does all the junior kids and stuff, so does a lot of work for kids and training and stuff like that. And it's good. And the nice thing is, Paul's a very, very good angler, and it gets you on the track.
Yeah,
very, very quickly.
And on that route as well, Paul's got a lot of guys who have started off with him, doing a bit of coaching, doing a bit of learning, and then now are on like the talent pathways, going on to the England thing, aren't they?
And his son has just got into the junior England feeder team.
Yeah.
Not England, the float team.
Float team, yeah. So if you've got kids who want to get into fishing, it's a great place for them to learn.
It is
and progress.
Great, it's great, and and the nice thing is you get the right advice.
Yeah.
That's the most important part of fishing is when you're setting out. Now, if you get the right advice, it helps you and it gives you the confidence to carry on doing it.
Yeah. Right. So we're going to do the last few questions now, Des. We've been on for an hour and a bit. So
I bet everybody's. How many have we got watching? Are they all falling asleep? Has anybody put like a emoji up with the Z's coming out?
Not yet. We've got over 100 live viewers.
Oh, that's not too bad then. Well, thanks for watching. Thank you for watching. I hope some of the advice is going to give you help you out on the weekend. So I'm having a weekend off because I need to do some kit.
Yeah, you're
my
on
kit
the festival
is
next week, aren't you?
Oh, my kit's wrecked. Honestly, it looks like a bomb's hit it. I'm quite a messy angler anyway, but my kit, it needs a jet watt, is hanging. It's a bit depressing really, because I've got to do so much kit. Everybody thinks that, like the amount of fishing that I obviously do, it's quite a lot of work as well, keeping on top of it. I don't, but there you go, that's what it is. When you're sponsored and you've got to go fishing for a living, it's not a bad thing.
No, this is it. Swings and roundabouts. Right, Ryan said he's bought some Sonu paste. He wants to get into paste fishing. Any tips on how to set up the rigs?
Oh, very, very simple, Ryan. Don't mess about with main lines. 021 power line to start with, 017, 019 hook lengths. Obviously, paste floats. We do the DS pole floats, which are the paste 1, paste 2, paste 3. I would just stick for the paste 2 because that is like your all-rounder. Yeah. The best advice I can give you is obviously if you look when you're paste fishing, you have the pot. I would say probably 2 to 2.5 foot back from the pole tip. Don't have it too close, because what you do when you ship out, reach out, put your paste in and bring your float back, and then let it all go down. But plumbing up for me when I fish paste, I plumb up so when the paste is on the bottom, it affects the bristle, so it actually holds the bristle is registering the paste. Some people have the float so it's literally on an angle like that, like it's like I can't read that. I've tried that and I just don't get it. I can't handle that. When I do paste fishing, it has to register on the bristle. So on a paste 2 float, for example, I think it takes 4 number 8 stops, and I have them just over halfway up from the hook. So when the paste is in the pot, the line goes down, sorry to explain on a video, but it goes down to the shot and then up to the pot, up to the elastic. So you've got your paste in the pot here, The line goes down to your shot, like the 4 number 8 stops. Now you've got to get that so it's swinging like that, and you can move your shot about. Otherwise, you end up getting twizzles and tangles.
Yep.
So you'll see what I do when you actually make it up. Have your pot in a certain position, like I said, probably about that far up from the elastic where the elastic goes in, and then put those shots. It's about halfway, half depth.
Yep.
So when you ship out, it just does that. It doesn't tangle.
And that's one thing you make sure you get right before you've shipped out at the start of the session, isn't it? Put your hook or whatever in the pot with a blob of paste on, or even stick a plummet in your pot and hold it.
Put a plummet in your pot before you start the match or you're pleasure fishing, and then look where your shot are. And if it's all nice and balanced like that, right? Because when it's windy, all this you've got to take the slack out of the line going that way and the line coming up here. If it's a bit slack this end, move your shot back towards you a little bit.
Yeah.
And you'll know what I mean. It's hard to explain on a video, but that's what you've got to do with paste fish, otherwise you'll get tangles. And obviously the next thing is make sure when you ship out the same way as you put your paste in, otherwise your line will be flipped over your pole tip.
Yeah.
So if you put your paste in like that, but the pot has to go in like that. Don't go backwards, because that means your line's flopped over your top kit. You probably do all that anyway, Ryan. But and then really plumb up, like I said. So the bristle is probably like the body of the float. You'll have the body of the float, and then I always have it so the bristle is probably like the plummet. The plummet is got that much bristle under the water, so I can see. Sometimes you'll get a little lift up like that and wallop. It's where a big carp's come in, slurped your paste up, and you've had that little lift bite. Some of the bites on paste, they're not all under, so you get a bit of that.
Yeah.
And you're like, wallop, and it's like they're great big things. And then stick with paste. Obviously, some people use 2 pots. They have like all the freebies in one pot. So corn, hemp, pellets. Paste fishing for me is like what we spoke about quite a bit today. Is start on pasting like corn, heavy baits. If it doesn't work, start introducing some micros.
Yeah.
It's the same principle. The micros can get them fired up. And also, if that don't work, don't be afraid to put a couple of big pots of groundbait in.
Yeah.
So the actual paste you're using, don't mix it all up. So say for instance, you've got a bag of 50-50 pellet and paste. Method and paste bag. Mix, 2 pints of paste up. Mix some groundbait up as well. So normal groundbait mix. If it ain't happening, put 2 or 3 big pots of groundbait in. Paste fishing is about attacking.
Yeah.
And that can fire them up. That's what paste fishing is all about. You can get away with it with paste fishing. You can feed more bait. You're fishing a big blob of paste like that. If you foul up one, so be it. With paste, you're probably going to get it out. You'll be fishing heavy and big. I know it's not ideal, but paste fishing is a bit like that. Other days, you can feed very little. I would just start off negative, a ball of paste like that with a few bits of corn and see how you get on. If it don't happen, start introducing small baits like ground bait and micros and see how you get on. But don't be afraid to feed it heavy, because you can get away with it with paste. If you try fishing like that on a lot of, like for instance with pellets, that you probably foul look everything.
Yeah, it's almost the opposite in what you want to achieve from your peg, because paste can be amazing on the venues where you can't, on like silty venues that fizz a lot and things like that, where you feed hard pellets and it's a nightmare because your peg starts fizzing and you're like, why can't I catch? Paste seems to always be best on those sorts of venues, doesn't it? Where
it's very close to that. It's been very close on some venues now where paste will start working.
Yeah.
Very close. It's just been too bloody windy.
Yeah.
And too wet.
Yeah.
It's too wet. You can't fish paste when it's raining. Well, you can, but it's a bit of a mare, isn't it? Because everything goes to pot.
Yeah, but it's nearly time.
Yeah, it is. Very close.
Nearly time. Hi, Baz has said, hi Des, which pole would you recommend for a beginner to pole fishing, and what hook would you use for feeder fishing for hard fighting carp?
Well, hard fighting carp hook's got to be a KKH barbless. They do 2 versions. They do a KKH barbed and a KKH barbless. The KKH 14, 12, they're amazing. No matter whether you're fishing with method or on the pole. Pole to start with,
Edge
margin
monster?
pole,
Edge monster?
edge monster. If you're just starting out, edge monster, you can't go wrong. Cut of £100, you get 2 top kits. They're mega strong. They're bomb proof. You know, sell loads and loads of them. And then if you want to, you can like give it to your grandkids or give it to your, you know, your family member afterwards. It's just go on forever. Yeah. If you want to move on a little bit, then obviously you've got a Superior X20, X10, depending on what you're doing really. But margin pole, edge monster to start with, then head up to an X10, X20, and then go on. All I will say is if you come off the margin, you're not doing much pole, but don't go into like a 2.5, 3 gram pole straight away. No. You know, get an X20, X30, 14.5, 16 meter pole, depending on how far you want to fish out, and then head into the better poles in a couple of years' time when you get used to them. You know, don't go head first unless you've been fishing for, you know, a few years in that. Then don't go in head first into like a 90 or a 70. Just start off a little bit lower and then take it from there, because the top kits all fit, so you can just like buy a better pole and know you've got more top kits then.
Yeah.
But starting out, edge pole, I think, be 10.5. They do an 8.5 and a 10. So try and get the 10, which gives you a bit more options to fish a bit longer. 200, I think they're like £250 for a 10 meter with 2 top kits. You can't go wrong, and they're lovely.
They're awesome for commercial commercial fishing. 90% of the time that you don't need to go, especially through the summer. If the majority of your fishing is done through the summer, it's going to be edges short. You're never going to go too long. If as well, you've mentioned there that you fish a feeder a lot. So if in theory you sort of kept your pole fishing to short edges, that sort of thing, and then you've got your feeder rod for chucking to any islands or a bit further out, you will have pretty much everything covered. And then
KKHs as well, they're all pre-tied. You can buy them in 4 inches. So some of them have got a bayonet on, some of them have got bands on. So you don't even have to tie them if you don't want to. Same as KKMs. It's just 4-inch KKMs, it's 4-inch KKHs, and basically KKH stands for knotless, not heavy gauge hook, and KKM stands for knotless, not medium gauge hook. So if you're fishing for big carp, like I do at Shearwater, I just use a KKH. I could possibly use a KKM because they are super strong for their wire gauge, but I wouldn't want to take the chance, because if you latch into a 15, 18, 20 pounder, you know, your bottom would be twinging a bit. So stick with the KKH. I do a lot. I fish with a lot more KKHs now than what I used to use the KKMs. So
good stuff. Right, final. I think 1 or 2. I think the last question. Do you think the Monster Extreme distance rod will be all right for big carp? He's saying £20 plus carp. He doesn't think his 10-foot commercial rods will handle fish of that sort of size.
No, when you're fishing for those sort of fish, then the Monster Extreme will no problem at all handling those sort of fish. I mean, when I go to example Boddingtons, when I have done some filming at Boddingtons and Shearwater, I use a 12.6 Distance Master 80 gram, and it will handle anything. I even played 2 carp on it back in one of the open matches. I was playing nearly £40. I was playing nearly £40 a carp.
You're going to have to explain the story because it sounds dodgy.
Well, basically, I was having a nice day, and but anyway, going back to that question, that will take it. No, that Monster Extreme rod will take it, no problem at all. So don't worry about that. Seriously. You can pull as much as you want with that rod. It's not going to let you down. But going back to my little story at Shearwater, I had a £20 ghostie actually. I got it out, which was amazing. That was on that rod, Distance Master, and on one of those hooks as well. And I'm only on those 17 power line as well. So yeah, that took some getting out. But basically, I've caught some bream. I was having a nice day, and also my rod went round. I hooked into this fish, and I'm like, bearing in mind, about 45 minutes before I got this £20 ghostie out, which fought absolutely amazing. I'm playing this fish, and I'm like, this is huge. Andy Powers, next to Andy Powers that day, and he's like, what is it? I said, don't know. There's an odd rumour that there's a catfish in there, and I'm thinking, God's sake. And I thought, well, it don't matter, I'll just get it out, because that'll help me on the in the match. So it's got to the stage, I've got my shot leader through my eyes, I've picked the rod up, because I know where obviously know the feeder's not very far out, and I've got some line attached to me bandem. There's not a fish on. So now I've obviously hooked a trailer, don't know what is on the end. I've got the line, hand lined about 2 meters, there's a carp on the end, and it's attached to someone else's kit, which is a carp. It was obviously a carp angler's kit, which is snapped off. So it was about, I don't know, 17 pounds. So I thought, well, what do I do with that? Unhooked it, put it in the net. And then I'm like, well, I can't leave all this line out. So I've got the actual carp stuff. I'm wrapping it around my hand like that, getting the line that's going out into the lake. All of a sudden, I'm winding it around my hand like that. I've got about 30 yards of it in. And I seen this slack line. It also started going around to the right. And I thought, oh, it's obviously been snapped off over there into a tree or something. So I'm going like that. And all of a sudden, it's like, I'm like, what's that? I'm only playing another carp. So this time I've got a carp. It was an XR method feeder with a bandem on. And I reckon what had happened during that match that I was fishing, someone had cast out, hitched up with this carp on this carp here, and he snapped his main line accidentally. So I was playing £39 a carp at one time. But I actually got this carp out, I looked at it, and I actually let that one go.
Yeah, you put that
and
one
it was
back.
bigger. Yeah, it was bigger. It was a lovely fish. But I had the bandem. I got a spare feeder. I got elasticated stem, so that way in my box. So yeah, I was playing basically £40 a carp for about half an hour. So yeah, I had a good day. So yeah, a bit lucky with that, but that's what happens, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, but if my distance master can handle £40 a carp, then that Monster Extreme rod will handle that, no problem at all.
Yeah, definitely.
Any more, Jake, or are we?
We do. We've got one final one. Mr. King keeps slipping in with another question and then calling us out for not answering it. There is a delay.
Is he off of? Is he? I reckon he's from a film that I've seen, Mr. King.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure what it
I
was.
don't think he's realised there's a delay. So when a question comes through, it's at the bottom, and we're like working our way down. But
right.
we will get to you eventually, Mr. King. So final question. final question. How would you set up a pole rig on the canal? He was on about earlier, the deepest section. So it's it is the St. Helens Canal. He says the deepest section of that is around 12 foot deep.
It's just quite deep.
Yeah, see, I always thought up that way it was generally like narrower canals, but 12 foot deep sounds.
If it's 12 foot deep, then float choice for me would be a Kerry. If you've not seen them, Mr. King, is it a Mr. King, or is he that's got to be a code name for him?
That it might be that his surname's
King. He might
King.
be King of the Canal. He could be King of the Canal.
King of the Canal, yeah. It
like
actually looks like a narrow Gloucester Canal, the St. Helens Canal. Wait, do you know what it looks like? It looks a bit like the King Sedgemoor Drain. Can you see?
That way a bit.
One sec.
Yeah, that looks nice. Yeah, look, I'll tell you what. Yeah, that looks lovely.
So looks a bit like the King Sedgemoor, doesn't it? A little bit.
Yeah,
like
lovely. It does look like some of the drains. Like I said, a Kerry float without a doubt. They're brilliant for that style of fish. It doesn't matter what baits you're fishing with. They're a teardrop shape, and if it tows a little bit, you can hang on to them as well. They don't lift out the water. I've used them at Evesham, and even on a river like that, and they work beautiful. Shotting pattern would just be a bulk, obviously up to a gram. I use shot, so number 8 is a bulk. Probably have number 10s. I would have, in that depth of water, I would use a minimum of a 6-inch hook length, but I'd probably go to 20 centimetres, because I think fishing for those sort of fish can make a bit of a difference, a bit of a slower fall in that last sort of foot. I'd have one number 10 above me hook length. Then, because when I used to fish for England, when we used to go to a lot of them venues that were quite deep, I used to look at a rig. It's weird when you look at a rig and you think that bulk's too close to the hook for that depth of water. Can't explain it, it's just in your head. And when you've been fishing those sort of venues for years and years, you come up with a system. I can't remember the actual measurement, but I'm sure it was something like 40 centimetres from the loop of the hook length. So I used to put a number 10, probably about 8 inches above that, a number 10, 9 inches above that at number 10. Then I go about 4 inches, and that was my kicker shot. And then I start my bulk another 4 inches above that. And that used to be the shotting pattern. I used to have a little jig on my workbench, and I used to just use that. I don't do that sort of fishing much now, but I always go back to that jig, and I can't remember the measurements. I think from the first shot to the start of the bulk, it was 40 some odd centimetres. So it was probably like that. And in that depth of water, if it wasn't as deep as that, if you were fishing like the Manchester Canal, for example, it'd all be a bit smaller because the floats are smaller, it's shallower water, and the bulk would look terrible in 4 foot of water. Yeah, it just look horrendous. Or you'd have your shot strung out. So that's the sort of advice I can give you. In that depth of water, gram, 0.75, maybe 1.25 grams. 1.25 grams is a great size float for that sort of fishing. I don't know why. I've used them a lot over the years when I used to fish the Gloucester Canal. Yeah. I'm not sure why. It just seems to be perfect.
It's like happy medium, isn't it? Like often a gram's a little bit light, and 1.5 grams you feels like a little bit overkill. So it just
some people might be thinking, what an absolute load of old cobbles that is. But believe you me, after years and years of fishing with the England team, Dorking team, pleasure fishing, and that's why in the natural float range we've done 1.25 grams in the power and the carry, because it is one of those just perfect sizes for 10, 12 foot of water. So but try that shotting pattern. I think I will on my YouTube. I've only just started it, but I will be doing that sort of stuff on there. So if you don't forget to get over to my YouTube channel. There's a couple on there at the minute. They're not the best, but we'll be getting better. And that sort of info as well, with shotting patterns and things like that, I will be covering as we go along. There's got to be another one, Jake.
Because no, that's our lot. They've
Mr. King's done us over on the last one.
No, that's it. That's the last question from Mr. King. So we're gonna end it there. Just around an hour and a half of Q&A. Like I said,
you're going to go to the toilet.
I actually am, and I've not had any lunch. Not had any lunch either.
You're moving around a lot, Jake.
I've not had any lunch.
Thanks for obviously thanks very much for tuning in. Don't forget to, just before Jake does run off to the bog, don't forget to now start thinking about other ground baits, because like chunky fish, you can always mix that with your match method mix, or you can mix that with your super crush green. But them sort of ground baits now will start coming into bait. Salted caramel, it won't be long, honestly. Within like a week or two now, we'll all be going down the edges and big potting ground bait, I'm sure of it. Yeah,
definitely. And like I said earlier, our next live Q&A will be start of May, and that will be the Sonu product launch. So keep an eye out over the next few weeks, because you'll start seeing a few teasers of what's coming. We've got plenty of nice bits for you to get stuck into.
We're doing that on the bank, aren't we?
Yes, the next one will be live on the bank.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Well done, Jake.
Good stuff. Thanks for joining.
So, have a lovely weekend, and we'll catch up with you in a week or two on the bank when we do our new product launch.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a good weekend.